Let's talk some NFL. And Peter King.
Oh, it's regal for Peter King, too.
It's three players. Do you want to start with the Tyree Wilson intel,
yes,
the Jalen Carter intel, or the Bijan Robinson intel?
Let's go crescendo. Let's go Tyree, then Bijan, then Jalen Carter.
Okay. According to Peter King, these are from his news and notes in his Football Morning in America column. I'm going to read verbatim. Tyree Wilson, the Texas Tech pass rusher, might be in competition with Alabama's Will Anderson for the top defensive prospect on Houston's draft board at 2. That could mean something if the Texans aren't quite as smitten with C.J. Stroud as mock drafts would lead you to believe. He later goes on to write, I will not be surprised if in the edge category, Tyree Wilson is picked ahead of Will Anderson. I particularly will not be surprised if Houston, whether at 2 or through a trade down if the Texans don't take a quarterback, takes Wilson over Anderson. Quote, D'Amico Ryans could look at Wilson after his year in San Francisco and say, I got my Nick Bosa, said someone in the league who knows Ryans. Then he later writes, one coach with a top 10 pick, quote, Wilson will be a better pro than Anderson. Gator, this seems unlikely, and yet it could be true. It totally could be true. And I read this and think advantage Lions. But should we warm up to Wilson at 6? If people in the NFL, some people in the NFL believe this?
Only if Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are gone, then I would warm up to Tyree Wilson at 6.
There's no way you could see a Tyree Wilson being a better prospect.
I think this is the era, or this is the a time of misinformation, the season of misinformation right now, 2 weeks before the draft, less than 2 weeks before the draft. Peter King is a national writer. I'm sure he's got contacts all over the place, and someone's going to plan it. This is what happens. We're talking about Will Anderson, who would have gone first overall last year, right? So come on, what are we doing here? Tyree Wilson is a fine player. There's a lot to like with him. He's got incredible size and strength, and he can be really good. But he's not polished like Will Anderson is. He doesn't have that high-end motor like Will Anderson. Will Anderson's the number one guy. That's a safe pick in the draft, and it's also the best pick in the draft.
I wonder a little bit if the scouting report reads in some way strikingly similar to Ziggy Ansah, just about raw athlete, doesn't have the numbers and the refined, pass rush moves, but given his athleticism, he's going to be an elite player, and really Ansah never was, and maybe that makes us a little bit reluctant. I mean, there's a whole lot of differences between the two prospects as well, but
he's played at least 2 years of college, whereas Ziggy played just the one.
Yeah, but we're talking about him in the same way. When this guy figures it out, he's going to be unstoppable, and maybe that makes us a little bit, reticent to buy into this, but
I'm willing to buy into him.
I'm open-minded about this. I think, given what the Lions, if they want him and they like him, I'm kind of still in a Holmes I trust kind of place, which maybe is being giving him too much latitude. But
all right, but let me ask you: Do you think that the first defensive end taken in the draft is going to be Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't be shocked anymore.
I guess I would be shocked.
Kang, what do you make of this story?
Does it make me warm up more to the Tyree Wilson pick if that's what the Lions have to do? Because Will Anderson's off the board, and maybe Jalen Carter's just off their personal board. A little bit. I'm not going to be as shocked as Gator would be if Tyree Wilson went number 2 to Houston, because I feel like Houston, I don't know what's been going over there the last few years. They took Stingley last year. Maybe they don't go quarterback this year. I have no idea. But I will say that I am still scared if Tyree Wilson is the only available option at 6. I'd still rather move out of that pick. I'm not in love with it. I don't hate it, but I'm just not in love with it. And I want to be in love with the 6th overall pick.
I mean, what do you hope to get if they end up with Tyree Wilson? It feels like he's like a draft and stash defensive end a little bit. Like they wouldn't expect a lot right away. But then you look at what they did last year with James Houston. Now, James Houston had a ton of productivity, but still was not considered one of the top pass rushers in the game. He was at one point a Division I commitment to Florida and played there.
It was a 6th-round pick, and he didn't play until halfway through the season.
Does it speak a little bit, though, to their ability to develop a guy?
Oh, no question. I do believe in Brad Holmes and their decision-making. I just, when it comes down to what do I think is going to happen in the draft, I think it's almost laughable to think that Tyree Wilson is going to go ahead of Will Anderson. That's all. I think Tyree Wilson can be a great player. And if Will Anderson's gone, and like King said, if Jalen Carter's off their draft board because they just say, forget it, it's not going to happen. He's in town today. Very curious to see what happens there today, if any news or information leaks out from it. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, the Lions say, yeah, we're taking a pass on Jalen Carter. Tyree Wilson is probably the next logical pick to take if he's available at 6. Now, Jalen Carter may be off the draft boards for lots of teams, though that's not likely a thought right now because he is going to attend the draft, and there's all these teams that he's done the interviews with the teams inside the top 10. Everybody seems to think he's going to go there.
Well, I guess the good news for this is if you are in the Will Anderson camp, which many people are, I mean, more Tyree Wilson in the top 5 talk is good for the Lions to get your guy to drop to you.
Well, it's Tyree Wilson over Will Anderson talk. Yeah.